What if your peace of mind wasn't a fragile thing the world could break, but a deep, unshakable foundation you build yourself? What if, in the face of chaos, disrespect, or misunderstanding, you could stand firm, not with cold indifference, but with a quiet, powerful calm? For many of us, especially as we navigate the complexities of life past our 30s, this idea feels like a distant dream. We spend our days in a state of quiet reactivity, our internal peace rising and falling with the tide of external events. A thoughtless comment from a coworker can sour our afternoon. A family disagreement can echo in our minds for days. The constant noise of the world, with its demands and judgments, slowly chips away at our sense of self. We become emotionally exhausted. Have you ever felt it? That deep weariness that has nothing to do with physical fatigue. It's the exhaustion that comes from constantly managing perceptions, defending your choices, and absorbing the emotional energy of others. It's the silent cost of caring too much about things that, in the end, have very little to do with our own path. We are pulled into arguments we never wanted, we carry burdens that were never ours to hold, and we lose ourselves in the process of trying to appease a world that is rarely satisfied. But here is a fundamental truth: this cycle of reaction is not a mandatory part of life. It is simply a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken. This journey is not about becoming untouchable, a word that implies building walls so high that nothing can get in. That is a fortress of solitude, not a foundation of strength. No, this is about becoming unshakable. The difference is profound. An untouchable person avoids the storm. An unshakable person learns to stand in the middle of it, feel the wind and the rain, and yet remain firmly rooted to their core. Their peace does not depend on a clear sky. This is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't feel. It is about reaching a state of such deep self-awareness and inner stability that the chaos of the outside world can no longer dictate the state of your inner world. It's the quiet power that comes from knowing that while you cannot control what life throws at you, you always have control over your response. This is not a gift you are born with. It is a skill you earn. It is a discipline you cultivate. And in the moments to come, we will walk through exactly how you can build that unshakable foundation, piece by piece, starting from within. Most of us believe our anger, our frustration, and our hurt come from the outside. We tell ourselves stories to make sense of our reactions. We say, "He made me angry," or "I wouldn't have been so upset if she hadn't said that." We point to a specific person, a specific event, a specific injustice, and we place the blame squarely there. It feels logical. It feels justified. But if we are truly honest with ourselves, if we are brave enough to look deeper, we discover a more profound and uncomfortable truth. The reaction isn't truly caused by their words or actions. It is triggered by them. And what it triggers is a wound that is already there, deep inside you. Think about the last time someone's words truly got under your skin. Not a minor annoyance, but a comment that left a lasting sting, one that you replayed in your mind long after it was said. Was it an insult about your intelligence? A criticism of your parenting? A subtle jab at your career progress? Why did it hurt so much? If someone accuses you of something you know with absolute certainty is untrue, if they call you a professional basketball player, for instance, you don't get angry. You might be confused, you might even laugh. The comment has no power because there is no part of you that believes it. But when a comment touches a nerve, when it lands on a hidden insecurity, a quiet fear you hold about yourself, that is when the emotional storm begins. That is your ego, not in the sense of arrogance, but in the sense of your fragile, constructed self, rising up to defend a territory it feels is under attack. This is not a sign of weakness, it is a map. Every trigger, every moment of intense emotional reaction, is a signpost pointing directly to a part of you that needs healing. For years, we are taught to build thicker skin, to create a tougher armor. But armor is heavy. And it doesn't heal the wound beneath it, it only hides it. The true path to becoming unshakable isn't about building better defenses. It's about making peace with the things you've been trying to defend. Science is now catching up to this ancient wisdom. Researchers in the field of psychology have identified a powerful internal resource called self-compassion. Studies published in numerous peer-reviewed journals, including many found on PubMed, have shown a direct link between higher levels of self-compassion and improved emotional regulation. It is the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend who is struggling. Instead of self-criticism, you offer yourself warmth. Instead of isolating yourself in your failure, you recognize that suffering and imperfection are part of the shared human experience. Imagine a man who has always felt, deep down, that he isn't smart enough. He grew up with a sibling who was praised for their academic achievements, while he was overlooked. Now, as an adult, he is a successful professional, but that old wound remains. In a team meeting, a colleague questions one of his ideas, perhaps a bit too bluntly. For others in the room, it's just a moment of debate. For him, it's a deeply personal attack. The old story, "I'm not smart enough," is activated. His immediate, unthinking reaction is to become defensive, to argue heatedly, to prove his intelligence. He is not reacting to his colleague, he is reacting to a ghost from his past. The journey to healing for this man does not involve proving his colleague wrong. It involves turning inward. It begins with a quiet moment of recognition, pausing before reacting and asking, "Why does this hurt so much? What old story is this activating?" This is the first step of self-compassion, acknowledging your pain without judgment. The next step is to offer himself kindness, perhaps by silently saying, "This is a moment of suffering. It's okay to feel this way." And finally, he can connect with the common humanity of his experience. Many people feel insecure about their intelligence. I am not alone in this. This process is not a quick fix. It is a profound shift in your relationship with yourself. It is the work of a lifetime, but it begins with a single, conscious choice. The next time you feel that familiar surge of defensiveness or anger, pause. Before you speak, before you act, turn your attention inward. See the trigger not as an attack, but as an invitation. An invitation to find an old wound you didn't know was still there. An invitation to finally clean it, to tend to it with kindness, and to allow it, at last, to heal. When you do this work, you are not just managing your reactions. You are resolving them at their source. And when the wound is no longer there, no one can use it to hurt you again. When someone says something hurtful, cruel, or judgmental, our first instinct is to look inward. We ask ourselves, is it true? What did I do to deserve this? We treat their words as a reflection of our own worth, and in doing so, we willingly drink the poison they hand to us. But if you wish to become truly unshakable, you must make a critical mental shift. You must understand that every word spoken by another person, every judgment they cast, is not a window into your soul. It is a mirror reflecting their own. Pause and let that idea settle for a moment. The person who constantly criticizes, who finds fault in every action, who seems determined to misunderstand you, that person is not truly talking about you. They are unknowingly narrating their own inner turmoil. A peaceful, confident, and whole person does not feel the need to throw stones. Only someone who is battling their own inadequacy, their own fear, or their own disappointment feels the compulsion to tear another person down. Their criticism is a confession. Their anger is a map to their own pain. Psychologists have a term for this, psychological projection. It's a defense mechanism where individuals unconsciously attribute their own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or insecurities onto someone else. It is an act of emotional offloading. Instead of dealing with their own feelings of failure, they might call you a failure. Instead of confronting their own dishonesty, they might accuse you of being untrustworthy. They are, in essence, trying to see their own demons in your face, because it is too painful to look in the mirror. Nowhere is this more painful or confusing than in our most intimate relationships. We received a comment from a viewer that perfectly illustrates this. She asked, "How do you let go of someone you love, but you're hurting them because they're not the man you'd like for them to become, and his ego is currently being threatened by your growth?" This is a profoundly important question because it cuts to the heart of the mirror effect. Here you have one person who is growing, achieving, and moving forward. And instead of celebration, they are met with resistance. The partner feels hurt, his ego threatened. Is her growth actually hurting him? No. Her light is simply illuminating the areas in his own life where he feels he has fallen short. His reaction, the hurt, the threatened ego, is not about her. It is a projection of his own insecurity. It's his fear of being left behind, his own unrealized potential, his own internal narrative of inadequacy being reflected back at him through her success. When you are in that situation, the instinct is to shrink. To dim your own light to make someone else feel more comfortable. You start to believe their projection. You start to think, maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I am moving too fast. But the moment you accept that projection, you have taken on a burden that was never yours to carry. Understanding this changes everything. It doesn't necessarily make the pain disappear, but it reframes it. Your response shifts from self-blame to a compassionate, yet detached, understanding. You can look at the person lashing out and see not an attacker, but a person in pain. You see someone struggling with their own reflection. This doesn't mean you must tolerate disrespect. It doesn't mean you must accept hurtful behavior. But it does mean you stop internalizing it. You stop letting their inner war become your own. You can learn to say to yourself, this is not about me. This is their fear speaking. This is their insecurity on display. This mental boundary is your most powerful shield. It allows you to remain emotionally centered even when someone is trying to pull you into their storm. You no longer feel the desperate need to defend yourself against their accusations, because you realize you are not the one on trial. They are arguing with themselves, and you are just the mirror they have chosen to shout at. So, how do you put this into practice? The next time you are faced with unfair criticism or a hurtful comment, take a breath. Resist the immediate urge to absorb or to fight back. Instead, become a quiet observer. Ask yourself, what insecurity in them might be fueling these words? What fear could be behind this anger? By doing this, you shift from being a target to being a student of human nature. Their words lose their personal sting and become data. They offer you a glimpse into the inner world of the other person. And in that moment, you are no longer their victim. You are simply a witness to their struggle. And from that place of quiet observation, you can choose your response with wisdom and clarity, not from a place of wound and reaction. You can choose to walk away. You can choose to respond with a simple, I see things differently. But you will not choose to carry what is not yours. In our noisy, reactive world, silence is often misunderstood. We see it as weakness, as surrender, as a sign that you have nothing to say. We are taught to speak up, to defend our honor, to have the last word. But the wise have always known a different truth, that silence, when used consciously and deliberately, is not an absence of power. It is one of its most potent forms. It is not passive resignation, it is active wisdom. It's the quiet refusal to hand your peace over to someone else's chaos. But this wisdom comes with a profound and difficult question, one that many of you have likely wrestled with. A viewer named GirlyGirl3721 articulated it perfectly. She wrote, I find it hard at times to stay quiet when I notice something unfair or careless, let's say towards children or animals. Speaking up for those who can't explain their pain doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. This is not just a thoughtful comment, it is the moral crossroad where the principle of non-reaction meets the duty of a good human being. And the confusion is understandable. If we are meant to be calm and unresponsive, does that mean we must stand by silently while injustice occurs? The answer is a clear and resounding no. And to understand why, we must make a crucial distinction between two very different kinds of silence. There is the silence of the coward, and there is the silence of the strong. The silence of the coward is born from fear. It is the silence you keep when you know you should speak, but are afraid of the consequences. It's biting your tongue when a colleague makes a racist joke. It's looking away when you see someone being bullied. This silence offers no peace. It corrodes your self-respect from the inside out, leaving behind a bitter residue of shame and regret. This is not the silence we are talking about. This is not strength. This is an abdication of character. The silence of the strong, however, is born from wisdom and self-control. This is the silence you choose when you are personally attacked, when your ego is provoked, when someone tries to drag you into a pointless, draining argument. This is the silence that refuses to engage with gossip, negativity, and manufactured drama. Why is this silence so powerful? Because when you refuse to react, you rob the provocateur of their victory. They want your anger. They want your emotional response. Your calm, steady silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront the ugliness of their own behavior without the distraction of a fight. You are not surrendering your power, you are demonstrating it in its purest form. You are saying, your chaos has no authority here. So, how do we apply this to that critical question of injustice? The principle is simple: you save your voice for the battles that matter. Think of your emotional energy, your focus, and your voice as a finite, precious resource. Every day, you are presented with dozens of opportunities to spend it. A rude driver on the freeway. A passive-aggressive email. A political argument on social media. A relative who knows exactly how to push your buttons. These are, almost exclusively, attacks on your ego. They are designed to drain your energy and disturb your peace. When you practice the silence of the strong in these moments, you are not being passive. You are being strategic. You are conserving your resource. You are saving your fire. And you save that fire for the moments when it is truly needed. For when a child or an animal is being mistreated. For when a fundamental principle of decency is violated. For when someone without a voice needs an advocate. In those moments, your silence is no longer wisdom, it is complicity. And because you have not wasted your energy on the 1,000 petty battles of the week, when you finally do speak, your voice has weight. It has clarity. It has the full force of your focused conviction behind it. You are no longer just another angry person shouting into the void. You are a calm, centered force for what is right. This is the ultimate reframe. Choosing not to react to a personal insult is not an act of weakness. It is the very training that builds the strength needed to act effectively in the face of true injustice. It is emotional discipline. The next time you find yourself in a situation that tempts a reaction, ask yourself this simple, powerful question: is this an attack on my ego, or is this an attack on a principle I must defend? The answer will tell you everything you need to know. It will guide you toward when to employ the profound power of conscious silence, and when to unleash the focused power of your voice. One protects your peace. The other protects your soul. You need them both. Imagine you are walking down a path in a forest. Over years of walking the same route, your feet have worn a deep, clear trail in the earth. Now, imagine trying to walk a new path. At first, it's difficult. You have to push through branches, stumble over roots, and consciously choose every step. Your body naturally wants to return to the easy, well-worn trail. This is precisely how your emotional reactions work. For years, perhaps decades, you have practiced the same reactive habits. Criticism triggers defensiveness. Disrespect triggers anger. Disappointment triggers sadness. These neural pathways in your brain are deep, familiar, and automatic. And this is why most people believe their reactions are an uncontrollable part of who they are. But this is a profound misconception. Reactivity is not a permanent personality trait. It is a habit. And if it is a habit, it can be retrained. If you genuinely desire lasting inner peace, you must approach non-reactivity not as a wish, but as a discipline, the same way an athlete approaches physical training. You must see it as a form of emotional fitness. You wouldn't expect to be physically strong without ever going to the gym. Why, then, would we expect to be emotionally resilient without ever training our minds? Every small annoyance, every minor frustration, every challenging interaction is a repetition, a chance to lift an emotional weight. The ancient Stoics knew this. They didn't just have good ideas, they had daily practices. They understood that emotional mastery wasn't something you achieve, but something you actively maintain. Modern science now validates this wisdom with compelling evidence. Researchers, including many cited by the American Psychological Association, have extensively studied the practice of mindfulness. And they've found it does something remarkable: it physically changes the brain. Consistent mindfulness practice strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational decision-making, and it can quiet down the amygdala, the brain's reactive alarm center. What mindfulness does, in essence, is create and widen a gap. It's a sacred pause between the external event, the stimulus, and your internal response. In the beginning, that gap might be just a fraction of a second. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and for one brief moment before the anger floods in, you have a choice. With practice, that fraction of a second expands. It becomes a full second. Then 5. Soon, it becomes a wide, open space of calm awareness. In that space lies your freedom. The event no longer causes the reaction. The event is simply an event, and you are free to choose your response with clarity and intention. So, how do you train this muscle? How do you carve this new path in the forest? First, you start small. Don't begin with your biggest emotional triggers, like a difficult family member or a deep-seated insecurity. That's like trying to bench press 300 pounds on your first day at the gym. Start with the minor annoyances of daily life. The long line at the grocery store. The internet connection that drops during an important call. The person talking loudly on their phone next to you. These are your 5-pound dumbbells. In these moments, instead of letting the familiar irritation take over, just pause. Take one deep breath. Observe the feeling of annoyance rise, and then watch it fall, without acting on it. Second, you visualize. Top performers in every field use visualization to prepare for challenges. You can do the same for your emotional life. In a quiet moment, mentally rehearse a situation that typically provokes you. Imagine a colleague criticizing your work. See it unfold in your mind, but then, vividly imagine yourself responding differently. See yourself pausing, breathing, and responding with calm, unshakable confidence, or perhaps with silence. By rehearsing this new response in your mind, you are beginning to carve that new neural pathway. Finally, you reflect. At the end of the day, take 2 minutes to review any moments where you reacted emotionally. Don't judge yourself. Simply ask with curiosity, what triggered me? What did it feel like in my body? What could a calm, centered version of me have done differently? This practice of self-awareness is like reviewing game footage. It helps you understand your patterns so you can improve your performance next time. This will not be easy at first. You will fail. You will find yourself snapping back into old habits. But every time you catch yourself, every time you choose to pause even for a second, you are strengthening that new muscle. Consistency is more important than perfection. And over time, you will notice a profound change. Situations that once sent you spiraling will barely register. You will feel a quiet confidence, a deep sense of control that comes not from managing the world, but from mastering yourself. You will have carved a new path. A path of peace. There is a quiet, deeply ingrained belief that is the source of an incredible amount of our anger, bitterness, and disappointment. It's a belief we rarely question, one that we assume is a fundamental right. It is the belief that life should be fair. We believe that if we are good people, good things should happen. That hard work should always be rewarded. That kindness should be met with kindness. That integrity should be respected. And when the world violates these unwritten rules, we feel a profound sense of personal injustice. We feel betrayed not just by a person or an event, but by reality itself. But here is one of the most liberating, albeit difficult, truths you will ever internalize: expecting the world to be fair to you because you are a good person is like expecting a bull not to charge you because you are a vegetarian. The bull does not care about your principles. It operates according to its own nature. And the world, in many ways, is the same. It operates according to a complex, chaotic, and often indifferent set of principles that have very little to do with our personal sense of morality. This is not cynicism. It is clarity. And your emotional freedom depends on it. Psychologists have a name for our powerful, unconscious bias towards fairness, the just world fallacy, or the just world hypothesis. It is a cognitive shortcut our brains take to make the frightening randomness of life feel more predictable and secure. It's the belief that everyone, ultimately, gets what they deserve. While this might offer temporary comfort, it is a disastrous strategy for long-term peace of mind. Why? Because when we are inevitably confronted with evidence of profound unfairness, our worldview shatters. Think of how this plays out in your own life. You work harder than anyone on your team, you put in the extra hours, you deliver exceptional results, but someone less deserving gets the promotion because of office politics. The immediate reaction isn't just disappointment, it's a sense of shock, of outrage. It feels like a violation of a sacred contract. Or perhaps you are the most loyal, loving friend, but you are betrayed by someone you trusted deeply. The pain is magnified by the thought, how could this happen? After everything I've done? That question, how could this happen? Is the cry of the just world fallacy being broken. It's the sound of our naive expectations colliding with harsh reality. This belief also has a darker side, it can lead us to blame the victims of misfortune, including ourselves. If the world is fair, then people who suffer must have done something to deserve it. This is how we end up with the cruel logic that questions what a victim was wearing, or assumes that those in poverty are simply lazy. It's a way of preserving our sense of safety, but it comes at the cost of our compassion. The Stoics were masters of overcoming this fallacy. Marcus Aurelius did not wake up hoping that the world would be fair to him. He woke up and reminded himself that he would encounter the meddling, the ungrateful, the arrogant, and the dishonest. This was not pessimism. It was preparation. By expecting human nature in all its flawed reality, he insulated his own character from the actions of others. He could act with virtue, kindness, and integrity not because he expected a reward, but because that is who he chose to be. His goodness was not a transaction contingent on the world's fairness. It was an unwavering principle. This is the shift you must make. Let go of the demand that life be fair, and instead, simply expect reality. When you do, your entire emotional landscape changes. You stop being perpetually surprised and offended when people act selfishly, when your efforts are overlooked, or when bad things happen to good people. You move from asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to asking, "What will I do now?" You shift from a position of victimhood to a position of agency. This does not mean you accept injustice. It does not mean you stop fighting for what is right. On the contrary, it makes you a more effective agent of change. You are no longer fueled by personal outrage and emotional reactivity. You are fueled by a clear-eyed purpose. You can look at an unfair situation and, instead of being paralyzed by your own sense of betrayal, you can think strategically about how to address it. Letting go of the need for fairness is a radical act of self-preservation. It is the boundary that says, my inner peace is not dependent on the world behaving as I think it should. You still give your all. You are still kind. You still act with integrity. But you do it because it aligns with your own character, not because you are expecting a cosmic gold star. The world will be messy. People will be disappointing. And life will be, by our standards, profoundly unfair. You can either spend your life in a state of constant argument with that reality, or you can accept it, and in doing so, find the freedom to build a life of peace and purpose in the midst of it all. We have traveled a long way together in these last few moments. We've journeyed inward, past the noisy reactions of the ego, to the quiet truth of our inner wounds. We've explored how the world often acts as a mirror, projecting its own fears onto us. We've untangled the difference between the powerful silence of the wise and the fearful silence of the weak. We have treated non-reaction not as a passive state, but as an active, daily discipline. And we have confronted the hard truth that the universe owes us no fairness, and that our freedom lies in accepting that reality. Each of these ideas is a thread, and when woven together, they create the fabric of an unshakable life. But all of it, every principle, every practice, comes down to one single, overriding commitment: you must protect your peace like your life depends on it. Because in a very real way, it does. Your inner peace is not a luxury. It is not a bonus for when everything else in your life is going well. It is the very foundation upon which a meaningful, healthy, and resilient life is built. Without it, success feels hollow, relationships become fraught with anxiety, and your health, both mental and physical, begins to pay a silent, heavy price. Protecting your peace means learning to be a ruthless editor of your life. It means saying no, not with anger or apology, but with quiet clarity. No to the pointless argument. No to the draining relationship. No to the constant influx of negativity from the news and social media. It means curating your environment, your friendships, and even your own thoughts with the deliberate care of a museum curator who only allows priceless art to be displayed. Your attention and your emotional energy are your most valuable assets. They are the currency of your life. And you must stop giving them away to people and situations that do not deserve them. This is not a selfish act. In fact, it is the most generous thing you can do for the world. A person who is internally chaotic and constantly reactive adds more chaos to the world. But a person who has cultivated a deep well of inner peace brings that calm to everything they do. They become the steady hand in a crisis, the calm voice in an argument, the centered presence that makes everyone around them feel more secure. By protecting your own peace, you become a source of peace for others. You've made it to the end of this journey, and the real work, the beautiful work, begins now. It begins with your very next choice. The choice to pause instead of react. The choice to seek understanding instead of assigning blame. The choice to turn inward and heal, rather than outward to fight. If this video helped you find even a moment of clarity, click the like button to help it reach others who might be searching for that same peace. It's a small act that can make a big difference. For more practical wisdom on building an unshakable mind and living a life of purpose, make sure you subscribe and join our community. We are all on this path together. And finally, I want to leave you with a question. Comment below, which one of these principles do you need to practice the most right now? Answering it for yourself is the first step. Sharing it can inspire someone else. Remember, your stillness is your strength. Your peace is your power. Guard it well.